The first thing that hits you in a five-star restaurant isn't the smell of food, it's the silence. That was what struck me most as I navigated between pristine white tablecloths, balancing 3 plates on my arm with practiced precision. The Milano wasn't just any restaurant in Chicago. It was a cathedral of whispers, crystal tinkling against crystal, and the soft shuffle of $200 shoes against marble floors. "Table 7 needs fresh bread," Marco hissed as I passed the service station, not bothering to look up from the reservation book. I nodded, though he wasn't watching. 6 months at the Milano had taught me invisibility was both my superpower and my curse. The customers looked through me, the management looked past me, and my fellow servers looked down on me. The girl with the community college degree filling in shifts while sending out resumes that never got responses. My fingers ached as I set down the plates at table 12. Ribeye, medium rare, lobster linguine, truffle risotto, reciting the dishes with the rehearsed smile that never quite reached my eyes. The businessman and his 2 companions barely acknowledged my existence, already deep in conversation about some merger. I didn't mind. Not tonight. Tonight, my mind was elsewhere. On the eviction notice taped to my apartment door that morning, on my mother's increasing medical bills, on the student loans I'd deferred twice already. The weight of it all pressed against my chest, making each breath feel like I was inhaling through a straw. When the front door opened at 9:47 p.m., I was folding napkins at the service bar, my back to the entrance. I wouldn't have noticed anything except for the strange way conversation died. Not gradually, but all at once, like someone had pressed a universal mute button. Marco's voice changed first. I'd never heard him speak that way. Soft, reverent, almost afraid. "Mr. Ricci, welcome back. Your usual table is ready." I turned, curious despite my exhaustion, napkins still clutched in my hands. The man standing in the entrance wasn't what I expected. In my imagination, power looked like the men I served all day. Loud, expensively dressed, demanding attention. This man commanded it without asking, standing perfectly still as conversations resumed in nervous staccato around him. He wasn't tall, but something about his presence made him seem like he filled the entire doorway. His suit was dark, impeccably tailored, with no flashy accessories except for a single gold ring. His hair was salt and pepper, cut close on the sides, and his face, God, his face. It wasn't handsome in the conventional way, but striking, olive-skinned, with eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 2 men flanked him, both taller, both broader, both clearly security. One scanned the restaurant methodically, his gaze passing over me like I was another piece of furniture. The other murmured something into a nearly invisible earpiece. "This way, sir," Marco said, leading them to the corner table that always remained empty, even on our busiest nights. I'd asked about it once, and Marco had just shaken his head. "Some tables aren't meant for everyone, Sophia." I returned to folding napkins, but my attention remained fixed on the corner, watching from the periphery of my vision as the man, Mr. Ricci, sat with his back to the wall, facing the entrance. The 2 guards took positions nearby, not sitting, not eating, just watching. "Sophia." Marco materialized beside me, making me jump. "Table 8. I looked up, confused. "That's Caroline's section. Not tonight." His voice was tight. "Mr. Ricci's table. Caroline isn't appropriate." I wanted to ask what that meant, but Marco was already walking away, his shoulders tense. I smoothed my black apron, suddenly aware of how plain I looked in the standard uniform. White button-down, black slacks, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached the table, notepad clutched perhaps too tightly in my hand. Up close, Mr. Ricci was even more intimidating. A scar ran along his jawline, thin and precise, like it had been drawn with a silver pen. His hands were unexpectedly elegant, resting on the table. No fidgeting, no unnecessary movement. I could feel the bodyguard's eyes on me, assessing, dismissing. "Good evening, sir." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Welcome to the Milano. May I bring you something to drink?" He didn't look up immediately, finishing reading something on a sleek black phone that one of the guards had handed him. When he did raise his eyes to mine, I felt a physical jolt, like touching a live wire. Scotch. His voice was quiet, with the faintest trace of an accent. Neat. I nodded, turning to leave when he added, Macallan, 30 year. Of course, the bottle that cost more than my monthly rent. I made my way to the bar, feeling oddly shaky. Macallan 30. Neat, I told Vincent, the bartender who'd been working at the Milano longer than anyone else. Vincent's eyebrows shot up. Ricci's back, huh? He reached for a key beneath the counter, unlocking a special cabinet where the premium liquors were kept. Watch yourself, Sophia. That table. It's complicated. Who is he? I whispered. Vincent just shook his head, carefully pouring the amber liquid into a crystal glass. Someone you serve quickly and correctly. That's all you need to know. I carried the scotch back carefully, setting it down on a small napkin before Mr. Ricci. He didn't acknowledge me, deep in conversation with a new arrival, a nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit who hadn't been there when I left. I stepped back, uncertain if I should wait or leave, when I heard it, rapid Italian being spoken by the nervous man, his hands gesturing emphatically. I froze. The nervous man's Italian was different from what I'd grown up hearing, faster, harsher. But I understood enough. Shipment. Delayed. Customs problems. Mr. Ricci's response was low, controlled, but there was steel beneath the quiet words. The nervous man seemed to shrink with each syllable. I must have made some small sound of recognition, because suddenly 3 pairs of eyes locked onto me. The nervous man fell silent mid-sentence. One bodyguard shifted his weight subtly, his jacket opening just enough for me to glimpse what was holstered beneath. Mr. Ricci's expression remained unchanged, but something in those dark eyes shifted, like shutters closing. That will be all, he said to me, a clear dismissal. I nodded and turned, but in my haste to retreat, my hip caught the edge of the neighboring table. The salt shaker wobbled, then tipped, spilling white crystals across the pristine tablecloth. In the heavy silence that followed, I heard my grandmother's voice in my head. Her old country superstitions about spilled salt bringing bad luck. Without thinking, I muttered, "C'è sfortuna," under my breath. I might as well have shouted it. Mr. Ricci's head turned sharply toward me, those penetrating eyes widening fractionally. The nervous man looked between us, confusion evident on his sweating face. "Parli Italiano, Mr.?" Ricci asked, his voice still quiet but edged with something new. Curiosity, perhaps. My throat went dry. 6 years of speaking Italian with my grandmother before she passed. The language of my childhood summers in her small apartment filled with the smell of simmering tomato sauce and freshly baked bread. "Si, signore. Un po'," I replied, my accent unpracticed but authentic. Just a little. Something shifted in the air between us. "Mr." Ricci studied me for a long moment, then nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. "Your name?" he said, no longer a question but a command. "Sophia. Sophia Russo." Recognition flickered in his eyes at my surname. "Russo. From where?" "My grandmother was from Naples," I answered, aware that every eye in our corner of the restaurant was fixed on this unexpected exchange. Mr. Ricci's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but something that transformed his severe features momentarily. He lifted his glass in a small gesture that might have been a toast. "Napoli," he said almost to himself. "The city of sirens." The way he looked at me then made my skin prickle, not with fear, though perhaps it should have been, but with a strange awareness, like he was truly seeing me when no one else in this restaurant ever had. The nervous man cleared his throat, clearly anxious to resume their conversation. Mr. Ricci's expression hardened again. The brief connection severed. "We'll need the menu shortly," he told me, his tone making it clear I was dismissed. I nodded and retreated, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. As I pushed through the swinging doors into the kitchen, I leaned against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. "You okay?" asked Luis, one of the line cooks, eyeing me with concern. "Fine," I lied, straightening my apron with trembling hands. "Just a difficult customer." The rest of my shift passed in a blur. Mr. Ricci ordered the off-menu veal that only Vincent knew how to prepare properly. He drank 2 more glasses of the expensive scotch. The nervous man left after 30 minutes, looking considerably more nervous than when he'd arrived. Mr. Ricci didn't speak Italian to me again, but I felt his eyes following me whenever I approached his table. It wasn't the way men sometimes looked at me, assessing, appreciative, occasionally crude. This was different. Clinical, evaluating. By the time he requested the check, the restaurant had emptied of other diners. Marco hovered anxiously near the bar, watching as I presented the leather folio with the bill tucked inside. Mr. Ricci didn't even open it. He simply slid a black credit card into the folio and handed it back to me, his fingers brushing against mine with deliberate precision. "Grazie, Sofia Russo from Napoli," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. I processed his payment with shaking hands. The tip was more money than I made in 2 weeks. When I returned with his receipt, he was already standing, adjusting his cuffs as one bodyguard held his coat. The restaurant felt different with him preparing to leave, like air returning to a vacuum. "Grazie, signore," I said, summoning my courage to look directly into those dark eyes once more. "Buonanotte." Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. "You close at 11?" he asked, though it was clear he already knew the answer. I nodded. "You shouldn't walk home alone at that hour." It wasn't a question, nor exactly a statement of concern. More like an observation of fact. "I take the bus," I said, unsure why I was offering this information. Mr. Ricci nodded once, decisively, and then he was gone, his guards moving in perfect synchronization around him as they exited the restaurant. The atmosphere changed immediately, conversation resuming, staff visibly relaxing. Marco appeared beside me, eyes wide. "What did he say to you?" he demanded. I shrugged, suddenly protective of the strange exchange. "Just commenting on the food." Marco didn't look convinced, but the arrival of a late-night party of 4 distracted him. I finished my closing duties in a daze, wiping down tables and restocking napkins on autopilot. By the time I clocked out, it was 11:27 p.m. My feet ached, my lower back throbbed, and the night air bit through my thin jacket as I stepped outside. The bus stop was 3 blocks away, and the last bus came at 11:45. If I missed it, it was a long walk to my apartment in a neighborhood that became increasingly unfriendly after dark. I had taken exactly 4 steps when a black Escalade with tinted windows pulled silently to the curb beside me. My heart leaped into my throat as the rear window lowered just enough to reveal those now familiar dark eyes. "Miss Russo," said Dante Ricci, his voice carrying easily in the quiet street. "Allow me to offer you a ride home." It wasn't a request, and somehow, despite every warning bell clanging in my mind, despite everything I'd ever been taught about strangers and dark cars, I found myself reaching for the door handle he extended toward me, making a choice that would irreversibly change the course of my life. I hesitated for just 1 heartbeat before sliding into the back seat of the Escalade. The interior was dark leather and smelled of expensive cologne and something sharper, like gun oil, though I didn't want to examine how I recognized that scent. The door closed behind me with a soft, definitive click. Mr. Ricci sat across from me, the space between us both too small and impossibly vast. Up close, in this confined space, he seemed larger somehow, his presence filling the vehicle despite his average height. 1 bodyguard sat in front next to the driver, his broad shoulders visible through the partition. I didn't know where the second guard had gone. "Your address?" Mr. Ricci asked, his eyes never leaving my face. I gave it to him, feeling a flutter of unease. My apartment was in a run-down building in a neighborhood that would make his expensive shoes look dangerously out of place. The driver nodded once and pulled smoothly into traffic without a word. "Thank you," I said, breaking the silence that threatened to suffocate me. "For the ride." Mr. Ricci made a dismissive gesture with one hand. Chicago isn't safe for a woman alone at night. The irony of feeling unsafe in the city streets but voluntarily entering a car with a man who made hardened restaurant managers nervous wasn't lost on me. Yet somehow, I wasn't afraid. At least not in the way I should have been. "How long have you worked at the Milano?" he asked, his tone conversational but his eyes sharp, missing nothing. 6 months, I answered, wondering if small talk with someone like him followed normal rules. Before that, I was at Benelli's downtown, and, before Chicago, I blinked, surprised by the question. I grew up in Cleveland. My mother moved us there from New York when I was 10 after my father died. Something flickered in his expression at the mention of my father, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. And your grandmother? The one from Naples? She lived with us until she passed 3 years ago, I said, a familiar pang of loss tightening my chest. She's the one who taught me Italian. Mr. Ricci nodded, as if confirming something to himself. Your accent is authentic. Untrained, but authentic. Coming from him, it felt like a compliment. I found myself adding, she never fully adapted to America. Spoke Italian at home until the end. Some things shouldn't be adapted, he replied, his voice softer now, almost reflective. Some traditions are worth preserving. The car turned onto my street, lined with dilapidated apartment buildings and closed storefronts with security grates pulled down. Embarrassment heated my cheeks as we pulled up in front of my building, paint peeling, security door propped open with a brick because the lock had been broken for months. If Mr. Ricci noticed the sharp contrast between his world and mine, he showed no reaction. This is where you live? I nodded, suddenly defensive. It's what I can afford right now. His eyes assessed the building, then returned to me with unexpected intensity. It's not safe. Nowhere is completely safe, I countered, reaching for the door handle, suddenly eager to escape the intimacy of the car, the weight of his scrutiny. Wait. His voice stopped me as surely as a physical touch. He reached into his jacket, I tensed involuntarily, and withdrew a business card. No, not a business card. A plain white card with just a phone number embossed in simple black text. If you ever need anything, call this number. I stared at the card, not taking it. Why would you help me? His smile was slight, barely perceptible. Perhaps I like the way you say buonanotte. The door beside me opened, the second bodyguard materializing from nowhere to stand beside the vehicle, scanning the street with practiced efficiency. Miss Russo, Mr. Ricci said, extending the card again. Indulge me. I took the card, tucking it into my pocket, wondering if refusing was ever an option with him. Thank you for the ride, Mr. Ricci. Dante, he corrected, his name hanging in the air between us. Thank you. Dante. His name felt dangerous on my tongue. The bodyguard escorted me to my building entrance, standing silently until I was inside, then returning to the vehicle. I watched from my building's grimy lobby as the black Escalade pulled away, its taillights disappearing around the corner. Only then did I realize I was trembling. I climbed the 4 flights to my apartment, each step an effort as the adrenaline drained from my system. My tiny studio looked even more depressing than usual. The second-hand furniture, the kitchenette with its dripping faucet, the eviction notice still taped to the inside of my door where I'd moved it that morning. Sinking onto my bed, I pulled out the card Dante Ricci had given me. The paper was thick, expensive. The number had no area code. I ran my fingertip over the embossed digits, wondering what would happen if I called it. I placed the card on my nightstand and tried to push thoughts of dark eyes and dangerous smiles from my mind. I managed 3 hours of fitful sleep before my alarm jarred me awake. My morning routine was mechanical. Shower, coffee, review job listings, find nothing suitable, repeat. My shift at the Milano didn't start until 4, leaving the day stretching empty before me. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when someone knocked on my door. 3 sharp raps that made me freeze. No one visited me. Ever. The landlord always called first. Approaching cautiously, I peered through the peephole to see a man in a dark suit standing in my hallway. Not one of the bodyguards from last night, but cut from the same cloth. Broad shoulders, impassive expression, alertness in his stance. Miss Russo? He called through the door. I have a delivery for you. My heart pounding, I cracked the door open, security chain still engaged. Yes? Mr. Ricci sends this, he said, holding up a small gift bag made of heavy black paper. And this. He extended a cream-colored envelope. My hand trembled slightly as I unlatched the chain and accepted both items. Thank you. The man nodded once and turned to leave without another word. Back inside, I placed the bag and envelope on my kitchen counter, staring at them like they might explode. Finally, curiosity overcame caution. I opened the envelope first. Inside was a note written in elegant script on heavy stationery. Miss Russo, I would be honored if you would join me for dinner this evening at 8 o'clock. The Milano can spare you for one night. Consider it arranged. The gift is a small token. Indulge me once more. Dr. No request, just an assumption of my acceptance. I should have been offended, but instead found myself oddly thrilled, a sensation I immediately tried to suppress. The gift bag contained a small box from a jewelry store whose name I recognized from Michigan Avenue's high-end shopping district. Inside, nestled on black velvet, lay a delicate gold pendant on a fine chain. A tiny perfect cornetto, the horn-shaped Italian good luck charm my grandmother had worn until the day she died. My breath caught. How could he possibly have known? Before I could process this, my phone rang. The ancient landline that came with the apartment, because the building's thick walls made cell reception spotty. Hello? I answered cautiously. Miss Russo. Dante Ricci's voice was unmistakable, even through the crackling connection. Did you receive my invitation? Yes, I managed, the pendant clutched in my palm. How did you know about the cornetto? A pause. Intuition, he said finally. Was I correct? My grandmother wore one just like this. Then it was meant to be, he said, as if it were that simple. A car will collect you at 7:30 this evening. I should have said no, should have made an excuse, should have questioned how he knew my phone number, how he'd arranged for me to have the night off from work, how he knew about a pendant that connected to my most personal memories. Instead, I heard myself say, I'll be ready. Excellent, he replied, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Until tonight, Sophia. The line went dead, and I stood in my kitchen, pendant in one hand, phone in the other, wondering what I'd just agreed to. The rest of the day passed in a haze of anticipation and anxiety. I called the Milano, and sure enough, Marco informed me that my shift had been covered, his voice tight with unasked questions. I spent far too long deciding what to wear, finally settling on the only truly nice dress I owned, a simple black wrap dress I'd bought for job interviews. At precisely 7:30, my building's broken intercom buzzed. From my window, I saw the same black Escalade waiting at the curb. For one wild moment, I considered not going downstairs. But the pendant around my neck felt warm against my skin, and curiosity burned hotter than caution. The same driver from last night held the door open as I approached. This time, the back seat was empty, except for a small bouquet of dark red roses lying on the leather. Mr. Ricci is meeting you at the restaurant, miss, the driver explained, seeing my confusion. The drive took us north, away from downtown, and into an area of the city I barely recognized. Old money Chicago, with historic mansions and private clubs hidden behind wrought iron gates. We pulled up to a discreet entrance marked only by a small brass plaque reading, Il Nascosto, the hidden. A maitre d' appeared instantly at the car door, greeting me by name as if I were expected royalty rather than a waitress from the wrong side of town. Inside was old-world Italian elegance, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, walls lined with wine bottles. The dining room held perhaps 10 tables, but only one was occupied. Dante Ricci stood as I approached, and the sight of him stole my breath. His suit was charcoal gray tonight, his white shirt open at the collar. No tie. He looked less severe than he had at the Milano, but no less powerful. Sophia, he said, my name like silk in his mouth. His eyes took in the pendant at my throat, and his lips curved in approval. You honor me by wearing it. It's beautiful, I said honestly as he held my chair. Thank you. Beauty deserves beauty, he replied, resuming his seat across from me. I became aware that we were alone in the restaurant except for the staff. No other diners, no visible bodyguards, though I suspected they weren't far. Did you rent the entire restaurant? His smile widened fractionally. I own it. Of course he did. Wine appeared without being ordered, a deep red that Dante explained was from a small vineyard outside Naples. The first course followed quickly, delicate arancini that melted on my tongue. Every dish came with a story. The chef's grandmother's recipe, the region in Italy where the ingredients originated, the proper way to appreciate each flavor. "Tell me about yourself, Sophia Russo," Dante said as the main course arrived, a seafood pasta that smelled of the ocean and memories. "There's not much to tell," I replied, suddenly self-conscious. "You already know I'm a waitress with a useless degree." "I know facts," he countered, his dark eyes intent. "I don't know you." So I talked, surprised by how easily the words came. I told him about growing up in Cleveland, about my mother working double shifts as a nurse, about my grandmother's tiny apartment filled with a sense of cooking and the sounds of Italian opera, about my dreams of becoming a translator before reality intervened, about my father's death when I was young, a car accident that left only fragmented memories of a man with a quick laugh and gentle hands. Dante listened with unexpected intensity, asking questions that suggested he was genuinely interested in my painfully ordinary life. "And now?" he asked, refilling my wine glass without asking. "What does Sophia Russo want now?" The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Security, stability, an apartment without an eviction notice on the door. "To not be invisible," I said finally, the wine loosening my tongue. "To not be disposable." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps. "You are neither of those things," says the man who noticed the invisible waitress. I replied with a small smile. "I noticed a woman who held herself with dignity in a place designed to strip it away," he corrected. "A woman who speaks the language of my home with respect and authenticity. A woman with fire behind her eyes." Heat crept up my neck that had nothing to do with the wine. "And what about you?" I asked, desperate to shift attention away from myself. "What does Dante Ricci want?" His expression changed subtly. "Many things, most recently to understand why a woman like you works in a place like the Milano." I laughed without humor. "Bills don't pay themselves. My mother's medical insurance doesn't cover her treatments. Student loans come due whether you have a job that uses your degree or not. You have concerns about money, not a question, but a statement of fact." I stiffened. "I'm not looking for charity, and I am not offering it." His voice was level, but there was an edge to it now. "I am a businessman, Sophia. I recognize value when I see it." "What kind of businessman?" I asked, the question that had been hovering since I first saw him at the Milano. Dante's lips curved slightly. "Import-export, primarily. Some real estate. Investments in various enterprises. Vague enough to mean anything. I thought of the nervous man, the whispered Italian, the bodyguards, the gun I'd glimpsed. Not just any businessman. You're afraid to ask what you really want to know," he observed, his gaze unnerving in its perception. "Would you answer if I did? Try me." I set down my fork, heart pounding. "Are you connected?" His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, a shutter lifting, then closing. "Connected to what, Sophia? You know what I mean." Dante leaned back in his chair, studying me. "What if I said yes? Would you leave? Get up from this table and walk away?" The sensible answer was yes, but the man across from me, with his dark eyes and his gift that somehow connected to my past, had already pulled me into his orbit. "I don't know," I admitted. His smile was small but genuine. "Honest. I appreciate that." He took a sip of wine, then set the glass down precisely. "My family has interests in various aspects of Chicago's economy, some more visible than others," a non-answer that was answer enough. "Does that frighten you?" he asked, watching me carefully. It should have. Instead, I felt a strange thrill, a dangerous fascination. "I'm still here." "So you are," he murmured, something like approval in his tone. Dessert came. Panna cotta with fresh berries. I was too distracted to fully appreciate it, my mind spinning with implications, with questions. "I have a proposition for you," Dante said as coffee was served in delicate cups. "A legitimate business proposition." I raised an eyebrow, trying for lightness. "Do you need a waitress at Il Nascosto?" "I need someone who speaks Italian, who understands respect and tradition, and who has the intelligence to learn quickly." His tone was serious now, all business. "I need someone I can trust to manage certain aspects of my legitimate enterprises. Someone with discretion and loyalty." "And you think that's me? You don't even know me," I know more than you think. He reached inside his jacket and produced a slim folder, placing it on the table between us. Your resume, your academic transcript, your current financial situation. A cold knot formed in my stomach. You investigated me? I investigate everyone who enters my circle, however briefly. His expression was unapologetic. Knowledge is safety. I should have been outraged at the invasion of privacy. Instead, I found myself asking, "And what did you learn?" That you graduated with honors despite working full-time. That you speak 3 languages fluently. That you have never been arrested, though you were detained once at a protest against pharmaceutical price gouging. The same medications your mother needs. His eyes held mine. That you are drowning in debt that is not of your making. That you deserve better than what life has given you. My throat tightened. He'd seen through me so completely, laid bare all my struggles, all my fears. What exactly are you offering? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. A position as my personal assistant, legitimate employment with my import company, excellent salary, benefits including health insurance that would cover your mother as a dependent, an apartment in a secure building owned by my family. It sounded too good to be true. It probably was. What would I have to do? The question came out more suggestive than I'd intended. Dante's expression remained impassive. Accompany me to meetings, translate when necessary, manage correspondence, learn the business. Nothing illegal, nothing inappropriate. The unspoken hung between us, the attraction that simmered beneath our conversation. The way his eyes lingered on my face, the way my pulse jumped when he said my name. Why me? I had to ask. There must be dozens of qualified people who speak Italian and need a job. Dante was silent for a moment, considering. When I was a boy in Naples, he finally said, my father taught me to trust my instincts above all else. When I saw you at the Milano, when I heard you speak the language of my home, I had an instinct. That doesn't seem like sound business practice. His smile was unexpected, transforming his severe features. Perhaps not. But I have survived this long by knowing who to trust. And something tells me I can trust you, Sophia Russo. The way he said my full name sent a shiver down my spine. You hardly know me. I know enough. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against mine. The first time he had touched me intentionally, his skin was warm, his fingertips slightly calloused. Consider it. Take tonight to think. I'll send a car tomorrow for your answer. The check never came. Of course it didn't. He owned the restaurant. As we rose to leave, Dante guided me with a light touch at the small of my back, his hand radiating heat through the thin fabric of my dress. Outside, the Escalade waited, its engine purring softly in the night. The driver held the door open. Take Miss Russo home, Dante instructed, then turned to me. Unless you'd prefer to continue our conversation elsewhere? The invitation was clear, tempting in ways I didn't want to examine too closely. But despite the wine, despite the offer that could solve all my financial problems, I retained enough sense to know rushing would be a mistake. I should go home, I said. I need to think about your offer. Was that respect in his eyes? Approval? Of course. Until tomorrow, then. He took my hand, raising it to his lips in an old-world gesture that shouldn't have affected me as much as it did. His lips were warm against my skin, lingering just a moment longer than propriety dictated. Buonanotte, bella Sofia, he murmured, his breath ghosting across my knuckles. Buonanotte, Dante, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. The drive home was a blur of conflicting emotions. The rational part of my brain screamed warnings. This man was dangerous. His world was dangerous. No legitimate job offer came with this many strings attached. But another part, a part I barely recognized, whispered that for the first time in years, I had been seen, valued, wanted. When the Escalade pulled up to my building, the driver handed me another envelope. Mr. Ricci asked me to give you this. Inside was a check, made out to my landlord for 3 months' rent, plus a note. Consider it an advance on your first paycheck. No strings attached. If you decline my offer, consider it a gift. A beautiful woman shouldn't have to worry about a roof over her head. I stared at the check, emotion thick in my throat. It was enough to stop the eviction, enough to give me breathing room. No strings attached, he'd written, but I knew better. Everything had strings. Yet as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, the check clutched in my hand, I knew what my answer would be. Not because of the money, though God knew I needed it. Not even because of the attraction that sizzled between us, though that was undeniable. It was because when Dante Ricci looked at me, he saw more than just a waitress. He saw possibility. He saw worth. He saw me. I slept fitfully that night, dreams filled with dark eyes and whispered Italian, and choices with consequences I couldn't begin to foresee. When morning came, I rose early, wrote a check to my landlord, and began packing a small bag. Not everything. Just enough for a few days. Just in case. At precisely 9 o'clock, my phone rang. "Good morning, Sophia." Dante's voice was as smooth as aged whiskey, even through the crackly connection. "Did you sleep well?" "Well enough," I lied. "Thank you for the check. You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." A pause. "Have you considered my offer?" I took a deep breath, knowing I was about to step off a precipice. "Yes, I accept." His satisfaction was almost palpable through the phone. "Excellent. A car will come for you in 1 hour. Pack whatever you need for a few days. The rest can be arranged later." No discussion of terms, of expectations, just the assumption that I would follow his lead. "Dante," I said, before he could hang up, "I need to know what I'm getting into." His laugh was soft, knowing. "No, Sophia. You really don't." The black Escalade arrived exactly 1 hour later. I stood on the curb with my small suitcase, heart hammering against my ribs. The same silent driver took my bag, holding the door open without meeting my eyes. I expected to see Dante inside, but the back seat was empty. "Where are we going?" I asked as we pulled away from my apartment building. "Mr. Ricci's residence, miss," the driver replied, his first words to me since I'd met him. "He's in meetings this morning, but asked that you get settled." Anxiety fluttered in my stomach. Settled where, exactly? The guest apartment, in Mr. Ricci's building. Of course he owned an entire building. I watched the city transform outside my window, moving from my rundown neighborhood through downtown, then north into the Gold Coast, Chicago's wealthiest enclave. We finally stopped before a sleek high-rise overlooking Lake Michigan, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a mirror. A uniformed doorman approached immediately, opening my door with practiced deference. "Miss Russo? Welcome to the Adler. Mr. Ricci is expecting you." I followed him through a marble lobby adorned with tasteful modern art, past a security desk where 2 men in suits nodded in recognition, and into a private elevator that required a key card to operate. The doorman pressed the button for the 32nd floor, the second highest. "Mr. Ricci occupies the penthouse and 3 guest residences on this floor," he explained as we ascended. "You'll be in apartment 32B. If you need anything at all, dial 0 on any house phone." The elevator opened directly into a hallway with only 4 doors. The doorman led me to 32B, swiping a key card, and then handing it to me. "Your key, Miss Russo. Mr. Ricci had this prepared for you." The apartment that awaited me stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a panoramic view of Lake Michigan, its blue waters stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The space was decorated in creams and soft grays, minimalist but luxurious. Plush rugs over hardwood floors, a white leather sofa facing a fireplace, a dining table of polished walnut. "Your luggage will be up shortly," the doorman said, backing toward the door. "Mr. Ricci left instructions for you on the counter." When he was gone, I stood frozen in the center of the living room, overwhelmed. This single apartment was larger than my entire building's floor. Just the sofa probably cost more than everything I owned. On the kitchen counter, all gleaming marble and stainless steel, lay a cream envelope with my name written in that now familiar elegant script. Inside was a note and a small silver key. "Sophia, welcome to your new home. For as long as you wish to stay, apartment 32B is yours. The lease has been transferred to your name, though the building management will continue to handle all expenses. Inside the master bedroom closet, you'll find some essentials to help you settle in. If they aren't to your taste, we can arrange alternatives. This key opens my private elevator, should you wish to visit the penthouse. I'll return around 7 p.m. Feel free to explore the building. The gym, spa, and pool are at your disposal. Franco at the security desk can answer any questions. Dante." The master bedroom held a king-sized bed with a sea of pillows and a duvet that looked like a cloud. But it was the closet that left me speechless. A walk-in larger than my entire former apartment, and it was filled with clothes, women's clothes, in my size. Dresses, pants, blouses, shoes, dozens of them, still with tags from boutiques I'd never dared enter. A section of sleek business attire, another of casual wear, a third of evening clothes that sparkled under the recessed lighting. A built-in dresser revealed lingerie in silk and lace, still in tissue paper. My hands trembled as I checked a price tag, then quickly put it down. One blouse cost more than I made in a week at the Milano. In the bathroom, a marble palace with a soaking tub big enough for two, I found toiletries arranged in neat rows. My preferred shampoo brand, but the expensive line I could never justify buying. Perfumes from Paris, makeup from luxury brands. It was too much, too perfect, too prepared. I returned to the living room, unease competing with awe. How had he arranged all this in less than 24 hours? How did he know my sizes, my preferences? The investigation he'd mentioned must have been far more thorough than he'd implied. The intercom buzzed, making me jump. I pressed the blinking button hesitantly. "Miss Russo, your luggage is here," came a voice I didn't recognize. Come up," I said, uncertain of the protocol. A different uniformed staff member appeared with my shabby suitcase, looking out of place against the luxury surrounding me. He set it down just inside the door. "Is there anything else you need, Miss Russo?" I shook my head, then reconsidered. "Actually, could you tell me how to reach the security desk?" "Of course. Dial 0 on any house phone." He gestured to a sleek cordless phone on a side table. Once he'd gone, I did just that. "Security," answered a gruff voice. "This is Sophia Russo in 32B, I said, trying to sound like I belonged here. "Could I speak with Franco, please?" "This is Franco, Miss Russo. How can I help you?" I took a deep breath. When exactly did Mr. Ricci arrange for this apartment to be prepared for me? A pause. "I believe those arrangements were made approximately 3 weeks ago, miss. Is everything to your satisfaction?" The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. 3 weeks ago. Before he'd ever spoken to me at the Milano. Before he'd offered me a job. Before he even knew if I spoke Italian. "Miss Russo, is everything all right?" "Yes, fine," I managed. "Thank you." I hung up, my mind racing. 3 weeks. He'd been watching me, planning this, long before our first interaction. The coincidence at the restaurant hadn't been coincidence at all. My phone rang. My cell this time, not the house phone. An unknown number. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Miss Russo." Not Dante's voice, but one I vaguely recognized, one of his guards, perhaps. "Mr. Ricci asked me to check that you've arrived safely." "I'm here," I said, anger beginning to simmer beneath my confusion. "Tell Mr. Ricci I'd like to speak with him." "He's in meetings until this evening," the voice replied, "but I'll relay your message." "Do that," I snapped, hanging up. I paced the beautiful apartment, feeling trapped despite the space, despite the stunning view. I had walked into this with my eyes open, but I hadn't realized just how calculated it all was. How could he have known, 3 weeks ago, that I would agree to any of this? As the hours passed, my anger cooled, replaced by determination. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait until 7 p.m. to get them. The silver key he'd left me burned in my palm. His private elevator. An invitation or a test? I showered, washing away the grime of my old apartment, the lingering scent of restaurant grease that seemed embedded in my skin after months at the Milano. I dressed in clothes from the closet, simple black pants and a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I left the tags on, uncertain if I would stay once I had answers. The private elevator was hidden behind an unassuming door at the end of the hallway, marked only with a small P. My key slid perfectly into the lock. The elevator itself was paneled in dark wood, with a single button. My heart pounded as I ascended to the penthouse. The doors opened silently onto a foyer of Italian marble, lit by a crystal chandelier that cast rainbow prisms across the walls. Beyond stretched a living space 3 times the size of my new apartment, decorated in masculine tones of charcoal and navy, with accents of rich wood and brass. I had expected more security, but the penthouse appeared empty. "Hello?" I called, my voice sounding small in the cavernous space. No response. I moved deeper into the apartment, taking in the details. Bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, a grand piano by windows that offered a 180-degree view of the city, artwork that looked like museum pieces hanging on the walls. A side table held framed photographs, the only personal touch in the otherwise showroom-perfect space. I approached cautiously, drawn by curiosity. The largest photo showed a much younger Dante standing beside an older man with the same penetrating eyes, both in impeccable suits, the Naples coastline visible behind them. Another showed Dante as a child, perhaps 8 or 9, serious even then, standing between the same older man and a beautiful woman with sad eyes. My father. My mother. I whirled around, heart leaping into my throat. Dante stood in the doorway to what appeared to be a study, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a glass of amber liquid in one hand. He didn't look surprised to see me. "You knew I'd come up," I said. Not a question. His smile was slight. "I hoped you would. You've been planning this for 3 weeks," I said, cutting to the chase. "Before you ever spoke to me." Dante crossed to a bar cart, setting down his glass. "Would you like a drink? I think this conversation calls for one." "I want answers, not alcohol." He nodded, unsurprised by my directness. "Yes, I've been aware of you for 3 weeks. Since you started speaking Italian to an elderly customer at the Milano, a man who happens to be my godfather's brother." I remembered the old man, one of the few customers who had treated me with genuine warmth, who had been delighted when I recognized his Sicilian dialect. "He mentioned you to me," Dante continued. "A beautiful young waitress who spoke his mother tongue with respect, who reminded him of the old country." I was intrigued. "So you had me investigated." My voice was flat. "I had you observed," he corrected. "Your background check came later, when I decided to approach you." "Why? What could you possibly want with a waitress with student debt and an eviction notice?" Dante studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "Do you believe in fate, Sophia?" The question caught me off guard. "I believe in coincidences that people like to call fate. Then call it coincidence that the woman my godfather's brother described shared a surname with a family my father once knew in Naples, that she had a grandmother from my home city, that she speaks my mother tongue in a city where few truly understand it." He took a step closer. "Coincidence that she carries herself with pride despite circumstances that would break lesser women." His intensity was unnerving, magnetic. "So, you arranged to meet me. You set the whole thing up." "I arranged to observe you myself," he clarified. "The conversation in Italian, your response, those were genuine. I needed to know if you were who I thought you might be." "And who is that exactly?" Dante moved to the bar cart, pouring 2 glasses of scotch despite my earlier refusal. He handed one to me, his fingers brushing mine deliberately. "Someone worth knowing," he said simply. "Someone genuine in a world of fakery. Someone who might understand the value of traditions, of family, of loyalty." I accepted the glass but didn't drink. "The apartment, the clothes, the job offer. What do you really want from me, Dante?" His gaze was steady, unflinching. "Exactly what I said. A personal assistant who speaks my language, who understands discretion, who can learn my business. That's not all." A hint of smile touched his lips. "No, not all." The tension between us was palpable, electric. He was close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the faint scar along his jawline. "I won't be your mistress," I said bluntly. His eyes darkened, but not with anger. "I would never insult you with such an arrangement." "Then what?" Dante set his glass down, then gently took mine and placed it beside his. "I want to know you, Sophia Russo. I want to earn your trust. I want to see if what I sensed that first night was real." His voice dropped lower. "And yes, I want you. But I am a patient man. Some things are worth waiting for." My breath caught in my throat, the intensity of his gaze, the heat radiating from his body so close to mine. It was intoxicating, dangerous. "And if I walk away now?" I asked, needing to know I still had a choice. "The apartment remains yours. The job offer stands. I meant what I said, no strings attached." He reached up, one finger tracing the delicate gold cornetto at my throat. "But I don't think you want to walk away." He was right. And that terrified me more than anything else. The sound of my phone ringing shattered the moment. I stepped back from Dante, my pulse racing as if I'd been running. The caller ID showed my mother's number. "I should take this," I said, my voice unsteady. Dante nodded, retrieving our glasses and handing mine back. "Of course. Use the terrace if you'd like privacy." He gestured to glass doors leading to what looked like a rooftop garden. I slipped outside, the evening air cool against my flushed skin. "Mom, is everything okay?" "Sophia, honey." My mother's voice was thick with emotion. "I just got a call from the hospital. They said all my outstanding bills have been paid, and that my treatment has been approved under some new insurance plan. How did you... My legs went weak. I sank onto a nearby stone bench, staring through the glass doors at Dante, who stood with his back to me, gazing out at the city below. "It's complicated, Mom," I said, watching him. "I've gotten a new job, with benefits." "What kind of job pays hospital bills on the first day?" "A very good question. I'll explain everything soon, I promise." "Are you feeling okay? Did they say when the new treatment could start?" "Next week," she said, her voice brightening with hope I hadn't heard in months. "The doctor said it might actually work this time, Sophie." Tears pricked my eyes. My mother had been fighting cancer for 3 years, each treatment working less effectively than the last. This new experimental protocol had been our best hope, but the insurance had repeatedly denied coverage. "That's wonderful, Mom. I'll visit soon, okay? I love you." "I love you too, honey. And Sophia? Whatever this job is, thank you." I hung up, wiping tears from my cheeks before turning back to the penthouse. Dante stood in the doorway, watching me with those perceptive dark eyes. "You paid my mother's medical bills," I said, not a question. He didn't deny it. "I told you the position came with excellent health benefits." "Those weren't benefits. That was hundreds of thousands of dollars." Dante shrugged, as if the amount was irrelevant. "Your mother's treatment was denied by insurance companies concerned only with profit margins, not healing the sick. I simply adjusted the situation." "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly. "Why would you do that for someone you barely know?" He stepped onto the terrace, the setting sun casting half his face in golden light, the other half in shadow. "Perhaps I wanted to demonstrate that my intentions are genuine, that my word is good." He paused, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. "Or perhaps I simply couldn't bear to see that worry in your eyes. I should have been outraged at the presumption, the intrusion, the sheer overreach. Instead, all I felt was overwhelming gratitude and suspicion." "What do you want in return?" I asked, hating the note of vulnerability in my voice. Dante's gaze was steady, unflinching. "Loyalty. Trust. Eventually." He reached out, brushing a tear from my cheek with his thumb. "For now, just give this arrangement a chance. That's all I ask." His touch lingered, warm against my skin. Everything in me wanted to lean into it, to accept the comfort, the connection. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had kept me safe for 26 years, screamed warnings. I pulled back slightly. "I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. The whole truth, Dante. Not just what you think I'm ready to hear." Something like respect flickered in his eyes. He gestured to a small table and chairs at the edge of the terrace. "Let's sit. The view is better with the sunset." We sat facing each other, the city spread before us in a tapestry of lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. Dante seemed to be considering his words carefully. "My father came to this country with nothing," he began, his voice taking on a storyteller's cadence. "A poor boy from Naples with hungry eyes and big dreams, he built something substantial. Not always by methods that society would approve of." His eyes held mine. "Do you understand what I'm saying, Sophia?" I nodded. "Your father was in the Mafia. The Americans love that word," he said with a small smile. "In Naples, we simply called it family business. But yes, by your definition." "And you inherited his family business." Dante's expression was unreadable. "I inherited many things from my father. His connections, his enemies, his sense of honor." "Are you telling me you're the head of the Chicago Mafia?" The question should have terrified me to ask, But somehow, sitting here in the fading light with Lake Michigan stretching into the distance, it seemed almost surreal. "I'm telling you that I have influence in certain circles," he replied carefully. "That I maintain my father's traditions, his protection of our people. That yes, some of my business dealings exist in gray areas. Illegal areas," I clarified. His smile was slight, at times, though less now than in my father's day. "I've worked hard to legitimize our enterprises." "Why tell me this? Isn't this the kind of information that gets people killed in movies?" Dante actually laughed, a warm, genuine sound that transformed his severe features. "This isn't a movie, Sophia, and I'm telling you because you asked for the truth, because I believe you're strong enough to handle it. And my job, what would I really be doing? Exactly what I said. Managing correspondence, accompanying me to meetings, translating when necessary, learning the business, the legitimate parts." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I would never involve you in anything illegal, Sophia. Never put you at risk. You have my word." "The word of a Mafia boss," I said, unable to keep the irony from my voice. "The word of a man who has never broken a promise," he countered. "Ask anyone who knows me. My word is bond." I studied him in the fading light, this dangerous, complex man who had orchestrated our meeting, who had paid my mother's medical bills without being asked, who looked at me like I was something precious rather than disposable. "Why me?" I had to ask again. "The truth, Dante." He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the darkening sky. When he turned back to me, his expression had changed, vulnerability showing through the controlled facade. "My mother was from Naples, like your grandmother," he said quietly. "She never fully adapted to America either. Used to say that Americans didn't understand the true meaning of family, of loyalty." His fingers tapped lightly on the table. "She died when I was 15, cancer, like your mother." Understanding dawned. "So I'm what? Some kind of surrogate for your mother?" "No." His response was sharp, immediate. "You're nothing like her, except perhaps in your strength." He took a breath, composing himself. "When my godfather's brother mentioned you, when I saw your name was Russo, there was once a Russo family in Naples that helped my father when he was a boy. A kindness never forgotten. I wondered if there might be a connection. And is there? I don't know yet. But I felt drawn to you before I ever saw you, when I heard you speak Italian that night, when I saw how you carried yourself despite everything." He shook his head slightly. "Call it instinct, intuition. Something told me you were important." The raw honesty in his voice touched something deep inside me. This powerful, dangerous man was showing me a glimpse of vulnerability few ever saw. "What happens if I stay?" I asked. "Really stay. Not just to work for you." Dante's eyes darkened. "Then we see where this leads. No pressure, no expectations. Just possibility. And if I want to leave someday, then you leave, with recommendations that will open any door you choose, enough money to start fresh wherever you want, and the knowledge that you'll always have a place to return to if you wish." His gaze was intense, unwavering. "I'm not offering a cage, Sophia. I'm offering a choice." Night had fallen completely now, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. In the distance, thunder rumbled, a summer storm approaching over the lake. "I'm not naive," I said finally. "I know there would be dangers, risks." "Yes," he admitted, "my world isn't always safe, but you would be protected, always. My highest priority." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. "I have conditions," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "If I stay," Dante's lips curved slightly. "Name them." "I want to finish my degree, take the translator certification exams." He nodded. "Easily arranged." "I want to visit my mother regularly, make sure she's getting proper care." "Of course. We can fly to Cleveland whenever you wish." I took a deep breath. "And I want honesty between us, always, even when it's difficult." His expression softened. "That, Sophia Russo, I can promise without reservation." The first raindrops began to fall, fat and heavy on the terrace stones. Neither of us moved. "Is that a yes?" Dante asked, something like hope in his voice. In answer, I reached out, placing my hand over his on the table. His skin was warm despite the cooling air, his fingers immediately curling around mine. Thunder crashed closer now, the rain falling in earnest. Dante stood, pulling me gently to my feet. We stood facing each other as the storm broke around us, neither caring about the rain soaking our clothes. "Sei sicura?" he asked. "Are you sure?" In response, I stepped closer, eliminating the space between us. "Sì, sono sicura." His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones with unexpected tenderness. His eyes searched mine for a moment, giving me one last chance to retreat. I didn't. When his lips met mine, it was gentle at first, a question, an offering. Then something broke open between us, the restraint of the past days shattering like glass. His arms encircled me, pulling me against him as the kiss deepened, became hungry, demanding. My hands slid up his chest, feeling the solid strength beneath expensive fabric. One palm coming to rest over his heart, feeling its rapid beat match my own. The rain poured down, plastering my hair to my face, running in rivulets between us. But neither of us cared. There was only this moment, this connection that had been building since he first heard me speak his mother tongue. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Dante rested his forehead against mine. "La mia bella Sofia," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "Do you know how long I've wanted to do that?" 3 weeks, I teased, my own voice unsteady. His laugh was warm against my skin. "Longer, I think. Maybe all my life." We stood there in the pouring rain, holding each other as lightning illuminated the sky, neither willing to break the moment. Eventually, Dante pulled back slightly, brushing wet hair from my face. "We should go inside before you catch cold." I nodded, suddenly aware of my soaked clothes, my racing heart. He took my hand, leading me back into the warmth of the penthouse. As the terrace door closed behind us, shutting out the storm, I realized I was crossing a threshold in more ways than one. Dante's hand remained clasped with mine. A silent promise. Whatever came next, the complications, the dangers, the struggles of merging our different worlds, we would face it together. I had walked into his life with my eyes open, knowing who he was, what he was, and still choosing this path. As he drew me closer once more, his dark eyes reflecting my own desire back at me, I knew that some choices, once made, change everything. For better or worse, my life had irrevocably shifted course the moment I had greeted the Italian Mafia boss in his mother tongue. And despite all logic, despite all the reasons to be afraid, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. "Bentornata a casa," Dante whispered against my lips. "Welcome home." And for the first time in years, I truly felt like I was.